Hey, what's going on, bike people of the internet? I'm back with another build video for you. This time it's a trail bike. It's something I picked up during the autumn and winter of last year and finally put it together, so yeah, enjoy. The bike is a Nukeproof Reactor. I actually bought the frame in the sale before Wiggle, Chain Reaction, Nukeproof, all those brands went bust in late autumn this year. So yeah, immediately as soon as I knew that, I had to pick up a couple of spare derailleur hangers just in case. But yeah, let's have a look at it right now. So yeah, this is an extra large Nukeproof Reactor, and it's in just a raw carbon finish, raw UD carbon finish, which I think looks super neat with the silver graphics. As you can see, I just pulled the axle out of the rear axle to show to the camera. And yeah, this is the bike, extra large. I've fancied one of these bikes for quite a long time, and when the opportunity came up last year to buy one for, I think the frame was £1,000, which is still a bit juicy, but for me it's like borderline dream affordable trail bike at that point in time, so I kind of couldn't resist and pulled the trigger on it. I'm just going to throw it on my luggage scales here to see how much the frame weighs, and I can't quite believe my luggage scales. I think they might be misreading or calibrated wrong somehow, because it says it's 3.7 kilos, which feels a bit too heavy for me. We'll find out at the end of the build how the total weight of the bike, but 3.75 kilos seems a touch heavy. I need to make sure these are calibrated. So before we have a detailed look around the frame, I just want to throw a seat post into it so we can clamp it in the work stand. I just got this old 31.6 Kona seat post here that's going to work fine for this job, so it's only in there temporary, don't worry about it. With the temporary seat post and seat clamp collar in place, we can put it in the work stand and yeah, have a detailed fly around the frame. So let's have a look at it in detail. So it's a full carbon frame, carbon fibre front triangle, rear triangle, seat stays and chain stays with an aluminium rocker. It's pretty girthy at the head tube there, which was really surprising to me. Yeah, do not clamp frame, so that's why I put the seat post in it. It's not a round, nice surface to clamp it to anyhow, but generally the surfacing on this frame is one of the things that attracted me to it. Looking at it in detail, it's quite nicely done. The things I don't like, the seat mast is probably a bit too tall. I think it could be used cutting down. The version I went through for had this Kashima coated Fox Float X shock, which I think was quite a good deal. We've got trail and rail options on that flip chip there. This is carbon fibre chain stays, which is nice, all one piece, and the seat stays are also carbon fibre with this integrated rubber section on it. It's got a threaded bottom bracket with ISGO5 mounts on it, which is nice. It's really chunky aluminium down there, and I think the down tube's actually kind of slender. It's not as giant as you think. It's in kind of a D shape in profile, so yeah, it's a very detailed bike. I think Nukeproof were doing really good things just before they went bust. They really were, like, I think they must have been challenging the top bike brands in the world at this point in time. Looking at the detail on the bike, it's truly really well thought through, I think. So, as soon as I ordered the frame, I also ordered a InvisiFrame paint protection film kit at the same time. What I didn't realise is the standard bike actually comes with quite comprehensive paint protection film in it in all the wear areas. It's not everywhere, but it's in all the areas that you would expect to find it. Not only that, but it's also trapped into the frame by the rubber protectors, so they apply the paint protection film, then they glue on the paint rubber protectors on top of that. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to trim very carefully with a scalpel to remove the original paint protection film, so we then can apply the InvisiFrame kit. Now, I'm no expert at applying InvisiFrame kits, so I did it little bit by bit over a few evenings, because it's a very time consuming thing to apply. So I didn't film any of it because I wanted to do it clean up in my living room. So yeah, I didn't capture any of that on camera, but as you can see right now, let's have a fly around all the components that we're going to fit to the bike. So this is everything we're going to fit to the bike. Initially, I was going to use a build kit off my Nukeproof Beefy and transfer it across, but I love that bike, and with all the sales going on, I figured I could build a whole bike for a good price. And as you can see, here's my InvisiFrame kit fitted to the bike. It's a lot more comprehensive than the standard version, and I would give myself probably a 6 or 7 out of 10 for the fitting. It's not quite perfect. There's some compound curves in areas that are very hard to apply the InvisiFrame kit to, but unless you're looking with a very fine detail, you won't find any bubbles in it. So yeah, so we've got a Nukeproof frame. I bought some RockShox Lyrics for £263, which absolute bargain. I've got Hope Pro 5 wheels, which I didn't find in the sale unfortunately, but I wanted those with the Hope Pro 30s with a single core, or single core? Yeah, single cavity. I've got a selection of Nukeproof components here in anodized purple because I think that would look good against the raw carbon finish. Got a Nukeproof Horizon saddle, really like those. And I also picked up this is probably the extravagant bits, is that XXX1 chain in that rainbow finish. We've got Nukeproof Horizon carbon bars. These are the V1s, they're quite stiff. Bargain of the day was these Nukeproof SRAM cranks. Found those for £43, badly advertised. We're going to use the MT5 Sport brakes because they're pretty much the best value for money brakes you can buy. I would highly recommend anybody get those. We're going to reuse SRAM GX Eagle drivetrain. This is one I had on my old trail bike for a while. It's lightly used. Tires. Now I wanted some Maxxis tires, but they're ridiculously priced, so I ended up going for Specialized tires in the end. So we'll touch on those a bit later. But yeah, that's sort of the build kit we're looking at. And Kona seat post there. We're going to have a Fox transfer. So yeah, that's what we're going to fit to the bike. But first, let's get the chain prepared. I'm a big proponent of waxing your chain. The only problem with waxing your chain in a proper method is getting it clean. So the best way to do that is various rounds of boiling hot water to dissolve any grease, ultrasonics, and a combination of white spirits and turpentine to get it clean. And this is how I make my wax. It's just pillar candle wax. You can get this from many hobbyist stores in the UK, and I mix that with a combination of PTFE powder to give a real slick and weather resistant chain. Once you get it waxed and cleaned, cleaning's the hard bit. The waxing is very easy, and it stays clean for a long time, and you probably get 200 or 300 kilometers of riding before needing to reapply afterwards. Can't recommend it enough. So onto the build, and let's get these forks fitted first. So we're going to temporarily place the headset into the frame so we can get the stack height correct for what we want. Then we're going to trim the forks down. So here's me just loading the forks into the frame. I don't need any grease on anything at this point in time because I just need to mark the fork zero where to cut it. I've got these purple Nukeproof spacers. I put all 3 of them on there. There's a 15, a 10 and a 5, and I think that's too high for me. That looks a bit ungainly. So after faffing around for a little bit, I decided that I would just go for a 15 and a 5 overall spacers. So what I've done here is I put the 15 on, and I just marked around the 5 at the top of the crown there to give me a cutting point. Now I quite like using pipe cutters on aluminium forks. I think it cuts very neatly. It's not quite perfect because it mushrooms out the very top very slightly, so you need to readdress that with a file at the very end. So there's significantly more filing on the fork using a pipe cutter than you would have to do with a hacksaw, but you don't need to buy a hacksaw jig, and you'll get it guaranteed to get it straight first time. So there's quite a lot of post cutting filing going on, because what it does, it kind of mushrooms out the very top of the fork, and it makes the stem a little hard to put on if you don't give it a significant chamfer at the top of the fork. Just going to hammer a staff angle nut in, and then finally I have treated myself to the tool for that from Park Tool, and then we can reassemble the forks onto the bike. And at this point in time, I decided to not at this point in time. I've decided to apply a liberal coating of grease here. The bearings are sealed, but what we're trying to do is give a corrosion barrier if any water gets in. So there's no gaps for water to fill in the frame because the grease has taken up all the gaps in there. That's the main focus of it. It's a corrosion inhibitor and gap filler rather than a grease to prevent squeaking and squealing of unsealed bearings and stuff like that. It's there to fill gaps so water can't in and cause corrosion. With everything greased up liberally, we can put all the compression and seals back onto the headset and then reapply the top cap, which has got a little seal on this Nukeproof one that comes with the bike, which is pretty neat. And at this point I decided to go for the Nukeproof spacers. So I put one too many on there. I need a 15 and a 10 to get the exact compression I'm looking for, and I decided to go for black because I thought it was a little bit too much purple going on previously. So yeah, we went for black spacers with a purple stem. I think that combo looks really good. It's a Nukeproof Horizon stem if anybody's curious. Let's get the bars on the bike now so we have something to hang some controls off of. So we're kind of aiming to fit the brakes and drivetrain in this next session of the bike. So yeah, they just need to go on, but I need to back off the stem a little bit here to allow them to slip through. So there's a little montage of that once they go through. And I think this colour scheme is already working in my mind. We've got lots of sort of grey, black colour scheme with a dash of purple. I think it looks pretty neat to my eyes. A little bit retro, but kind of modern as well. My theme for this was, did you ever see Lewis Hamilton's Zonda? The LH44 Zonda. It's one of my favourite cars sort of produced. I'm not a massive fan of Pagani, but that particular car with the black and purple, that's kind of what the inspiration was for the colours on this build. Mostly black with a dash of purple. Bottom bracket next, and I'm fitting a Nukeproof, I'm not sure if it's a Horizon or Neutron bottom bracket, to be honest. I can't remember off the top of my head. Again, brand new build. Let's just load it up with grease, prevent any corrosion in the future. It shouldn't be too bad because we've got aluminium bottom bracket cups going into aluminium threaded bottom bracket, so we're just trying to make our life easier in the future by liberally applying a decent coating of grease to everything. And with these coloured cups, I don't want to mar them up with my not particularly great X tools thing here, so I'm just slipping a cloth over the cup whilst I tighten it to stop it marring up and sort of scarring. Nice anodized purple colour. The chain set I'm using is a GXP one, and I'm actually a bit of a fan of the GXP. I know not many people are, but steel spindles to me generally make a bit more sense than aluminium spindles for overall long durability to my mind. It's a much more harder wearing material. So yeah, I quite like steel spindles over aluminium ones. I know aluminium ones are lighter, but there's definitely a place for steel spindles. I accidentally did a bit of a pre-trial fit here, removed the bearing seal from the bottom bracket. Don't worry, it's on the crank at this point in time. But I've got this ISG05 like top guide that I wanted to fit. This was on sale for $7.99, so I couldn't resist it, in the purple as well. Looks pretty badass, I think. So yeah, I snagged one of those, and yeah, against the sort of black chainring, I'm definitely tempted to put a silver or purple chainring on this bike. Let me know in the comments if I should put a purple or silver chainring to complement the colours overall. I feel it could use a dash of more colour at the end. Still contemplating that. But yeah, so I decided to fit a top guide to this one. They're kind of faffy because you have to kind of assemble everything, assess the chain line and put spacers on the back of it. So it's basically what I'm doing here is sort of putting it on and off, playing around with everything, refitting and unfitting spacers and getting everything torqued down correctly. It's not a fast process, I would like to say. And there's that seal for that bottom bracket again. With all that done, we can grease it up and install everything, and I make a schoolboy error here. I wonder if any of you spotted it. Yeah, back onto the non-drive side, we can torque these cranks up. These cranks were an absolutely insane deal on Chain Reaction. They were £43, I'm sure they were £43. they were badly advertised. It didn't say carbon anywhere, but in the picture you could see they were not the aluminium versions because they had no hollow on the rear section of them. So I just snagged them whilst I could. I should have bought 2 or 3. 170s with a 32 tooth boost chainring, absolutely perfect. £43 for carbon chain set. I mean, I feel sorry for everybody at Chain Reaction Wiggle who's lost their job, but like, I can't resist it. If the price is that good, I'm just going to use them. It spins pretty good, but what I realised was there's a knocking sound coming from it, and I thought, oh no, what have I forgot to do? And what I effectively forgot to do was fit the wavy washer on the drive side to take out any gaps and tolerance build up between the bottom bracket and the frame and the crankset. So there's a little wavy washer that needs to go on there first to sort of give it a little bit of spring and take up that tolerance stack, and everything was after that was spinning perfectly and really nicely. Pedals I'm going to go for are these Nukeproof Horizon trail pedals. I'm a bit fussy with pedals, and it depends on where I'm riding if I will ride with clips or flats. So these are the clipped pedal option for this bike. I think at the end you'll see some flat pedal options because I went to Forestine and went out with my brother and that lot, and they're crazy. So I wanted to flat pedals for that one. For cross country and trail riding, is clips for me. Onto the wheels now, and as you may have seen, I've gone for Hope Pro 5 factory wheels. Can't remember what they call them now. Hope Profile, Hope wheel build, effectively. Hope hoops. That's the word I'm looking for. Annoyingly, they don't come pre-taped, so you have to tape them yourself. So I pre-taped these, and this is me just poking some holes for the valve cap. Now, the best tip I can give you with this is don't use a knife. Use something sharp like a pick or a sharpened screwdriver or something to poke a round hole through it, and not slice an X because it causes a weak point in the tape, because I've had it fail before. The valves I'm going to go for these PTs times Chris King valves. I really like these. They're relatively affordable and more importantly purple to go over everything else, and I think a little dash of purple helps. I was tempted to go for some purple hubs, but I tend to keep my Hope wheels for a long time. I've got every set I've ever bought and they all still work fine, so I like the ability to place them onto the bike in the future and have a black hub that's not going to clash. So a black hub is perfect for me, and a little dash of purple on the valve is all I really need. Okay, tyres next. I really wanted Maxxis Forecasters for this bike, but they are stupidly expensive. I wanted that sort of light but fast but grippy trail tyre, and they're just mad expensive, so I've decided to go for a combo of Specialized Purgatory and ground control tyres. Now these are about nearly half the price of the Maxxis ones. I've got a T9 compound in the front, which is the softest, stickiest version, and a T7 at the back, which is their trail version. And for £35 each, I think they're probably one of the better steals in the cycling industry at the moment, these Specialized tyres. And after using them, boy do they grip well and they roll fast. So if you're getting a bit tired of these crazy Maxxis prices, have a look at the Specialized tyres, I would if I were you. Onto the brakes now, and I've chosen to go for the Magura MT5 Sport Combo, which is the best deal in brakes that you can find if you want 4-pot high strength, high power brakes. They're made in Europe, which is really nice, I think, and you can pick up a set for between £200 and £220, which I think's a great deal in the big scheme of things. I know you could probably pick up some Dior brake calipers for £30-40 each, but these Maguras are just different level on power. They come with all the rotors and everything you need to assemble them to the bike, apart from the frame adapters, so can't recommend them enough. Here's my lightly used 10 to 50 Eagle cassette here for GX level. I think I've only got about 300 or 400 kilometers on this so far, so there's plenty of life left in it. I'll give it a good clean up and it's ready to reuse as far as I'm concerned. Okay, onto the controls next. Now all my SRAM GX stuff and the Fox transfer are I-spec or the equivalent of that, and didn't come with any clamps, so I had to buy these little clamps from Amazon. I think they were £6 or £7 each. No big deal, but they can be really expensive if you want to buy the standard one. So yeah, have a look on Amazon for these like clamps, because I'm not using SRAM or Shimano brakes. I want the Maguras. I don't have the I-spec, or I can't remember what SRAM called their version of the integrated brake and shifter combo clamping mechanism is called, but yeah, I had to buy some additional clamps. And here are the big Magura calipers. These are, I just can't get over how good value this Magura stuff is. So these calipers are really nicely forged mono calipers. Way better than some of the machined ones I've seen for similar prices. There's no spring in it per se, like the Shimano and SRAM versions. You know, the spring goes between the pads. It's all magnetically pulled towards the pistons, which is, I think, is a superior system, because I've been in the Alps before and those little springs have just melted off with excess brake dragging down really steep alpine off-piste descents. I've just absolutely destroyed those before. I find them a bit of a pain. So yeah, I really rate the Magura brakes. They're kind of a cool industrial design with their carbon stuff at the top. And yeah, this is just a bit of a me trying to montage me showing you all the cabling of the bikes. So all the cabling runs through this port in the down tube here and up through the head tube. I don't have that fancy pants Park Tool cable threading kit, so I kind of bodge it with brake cable and some duct tape and stop it pulling through. It's doable. It's still a giant pain in the bum. I must have spent about a good half a day trying to cable this bike up. So it depends. If I was doing internal cable routing a lot, I probably would buy that Park Tool internal cable routing kit, but for me it would barely ever get used, so I'd rather put up half a day of troublesome and fighting it, because it was an absolute fight to get the cables through this frame, to be honest. But we got there in the end. It's not impossible. So yeah, this is me just greasing up this Fox transfer seat post. I went for the Fox transfer because, well, for a few reasons. The main reason is it's got a super low stack height on where you put the saddle, and I was a little concerned at maximum reach the saddle would be too high for me, so I wanted to have this is a 175mm dropper, and at that amount of post rise I needed to make sure I had a low stack to make sure my overall saddle height was where I wanted it to be at maximum extension, because the seat tube's a little long on this bike. I think that's the only negative I could really say. Depends how tall you are, but yeah, I'm like 6'1", 187, 88 centimeters. Yeah, so it depends how tall you are on your leg lengths and stuff like that, but I needed to make sure I had a low stack dropper to make sure I could get that 175mm drop into the frame. A 200 would have been too tall for me. So this is why I usually don't film putting the cables into my bikes and my videos, because it is a million camera angles, because you're working one area then moving to the next, moving to the next, moving to the next. And there's such a fiddly thing, especially like on modern bikes. It's just constant tinkering around trying to get the cable just right, give you the correct steering lock, making sure everything lines up relatively nicely. It's not too loose and too much of a big loop, or too short or too long. It's just very time consuming part of a bike build, I find, cabling. I'm not very worried about hydraulic hosing. I find it actually relatively simple compared. Some people are a bit nervous about hydraulic hosing. I don't fully understand why. It's just as easy as a normal brake cable, and in some ways easier, because you don't have to worry so much about kinking it and stuff like that. You can be a little bit more aggressive, I feel, sometimes. But yeah, I find it relatively easy, as long as you understand hydraulic systems. Maybe that's a video for the future, understanding barbs and olives and stuff like that. It's a bit of technology to wrap your head around, but they're all relatively the same. And bleeding brakes is relatively easy also, so if you're unsure, just jump in. There's plenty of videos online to help, and there's nothing particularly complex about any of it. I'd say the only thing I could really use is a barb insertion tool, but I use this bodgy method where I clamp the barb with a mole grip and just tap in the insert into the end. And I guess the only error you can make is not have the olive before you tap that on. The rest is relatively easy. Have you seen this hack before of using nail cutters to trim zip ties? It's the best hack if you have zip ties on your bike and you're in areas like you can catch your legs on them, potentially on top tubes. It trims them perfectly flush every time. It's the best hack for zip ties ever. With all the cabling done, we can get the wheels on the bike and the transmission tuned in now. So yeah, this is the rear wheel going into the bike. I don't know why I didn't put the rear mech in mechanic mode or whatever it is. I don't know what you call that, the little spring to hold the cage open. I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. But yeah, let's fit the chain next. I'd say this is one of the negatives of waxing your chain, is the initial install after waxing it. The chain is very stiff. It's like kind of cardboardy because all the links are coated in wax, so it's kind of rigid. It goes away within 2 minutes. It kind of pops out a load of excess wax. What I did here, I wanted to size the chain correctly. I emptied the shock of any air to make sure that at maximum compression there wasn't too much chain growth, and then I could cut the chain to the appropriate length for the bike. So yeah, that's me just making sure I wanted to cut it the right one. I double checked and double checked again, because reassembling these chains is probably not ideal, and especially this chain is one of the few things that I think you should spend your money on, is these SRAM XX1 chains. They're not the fastest chains in the world, but the coatings and the hard chroming they go through in their manufacturing process make them some of the most durable. And I really truly recommend them. I think you can get like tens of thousands of kilometers out of these. These are insanely engineered chains, and I can't recommend them enough. With the gears tuned in, we can pop the front wheel in. I noticed the axle wasn't lined up correctly here, so that's something I fixed up afterwards. It doesn't torque down in my correct align position. And then we just need to do a lever bleed, because we've trimmed the cable at the top there and we've introduced air at the top of it. Magura bleeding is a bit weird. It's not stupid, but it's a bit strange compared to most. It's nothing to worry about. It's just a little bit different, with a hole in the syringe to pull a vacuum, to limit the vacuum strength. It's nothing to worry about. Just look online and get it done. I really like Magura's stuff. Have for a long time. The feel is somewhere between Shimano and SRAM. It's kind of not as light as Shimano, but more feelsome than SRAM. And it's the perfect middle ground, I think. And again, the power is incredible. These plastic levers, that's probably the slight negative. They're carbon fiber infused plastic. They kind of almost have like self-tapping screws in the system there to hold them to the bars. A little bit weird to wrap your head around, but as a piece of industrial design and like cost-effective design, I think they're superb. So we've got a bit more gear cable and cabling faff to do yet. Like I say, filming cables on a bike build is the most time-consuming thing you can do, because I'm really fussy about my cables and cable lengths, and maybe some of you think my cables are a little bit too long, but I always make sure that when my bars, if I have a crash and my bars spin, that the cables aren't going to rip out the frame or out of the controls. So I always sort of bear that in mind when I size my cable. So if I should fall off the bike and the bars spin a 180 or close to a 180 around the frame, they're not going to rip out of the controls of the bike. I feel like potentially in the future I might want to change or upgrade this little Fox transfer lever here. It's all black at the moment, and I feel like it could use just that dash of purple to bring the bike together a little bit. It's nothing bad, it works fine, but I feel like a little dash of purple there could be really cool. So with all the cables cut and length, we can finally at last get this last cable on the bike done and get the derailleur tuned in. Yeah, it's usually I don't film it again because it's very time consuming. But yeah, here we go. Here's me doing a cable set on this bike, and with everything done, we can see how the gears shift. I think one thing of interest to note at this point in time is all the wax falling off the chain. So this is the excess wax that sits in between all of the links. You can see it just pinging up the chain on the jockey wheels there and covering the jockey wheels. It's so clean, like it's just a hoovering method. You can't grip it anywhere. This is the only messy bit of the bike and the worst section. But yeah, the gears aren't quite shifting quite right. They needed more tension, so I fixed that off camera and then trimmed the cable to the right length just to leave a little bit excessive. I recently bought these new Park tools, and whilst the cable cutters are really good, I assumed that the two sections behind the cable cutters for crimping the ends onto cables, but mine don't seem to work quite right. Is that normal? Am I misreading how to use these? I need to give the rear shock a bit of air here so I can set the saddle and stuff at the right angles, so I'm just giving it a little bit of air at this point in time. I'm not pumping up to full pressure from my body weight. And then I can fit the controls onto the bars. I'm going for these DMR def grips, Brendog def grips. I really like these grips. They're nice, soft and tacky. Try some. Like, the grips are consumables as far as I'm concerned. You should try a few things. But yeah, these def grips I'm quite a fan of. I've got a couple of them on my bike. They're affordable and not too silly. And this is me faffing around with all the controls, trying to get them lined up at the right sort of angle and comfortable angles I like, and just torquing them down just to the right spec. I don't do my levers up too tight. If I have a crash, I want them to bend out the way. So yeah, getting that torque setting, I think it's like 3 or 4 Newton meters on these, is very light. So yeah, they twist out the way if you come a cropper and it hit the ground, because they're fairly likely to hit the ground. And this is me just being pedantic, measuring things to make sure everything's symmetrical across the top of the cockpit. Last bits to finish up the bike, I forgot to fit the bungs in the head tube here to cover the cable ports. They were quite easy to fit, they're just a bit of faffing, but they look pretty neat. And fitting the saddle to the Fox transfer seat post here. It's a bit of a fiddle, nothing too major, and I really like these Nukeproof Reactor Horizon saddles. They're very much like a specialized power saddle, but way cheaper. And the last thing I need to do is get all the forks and bits up to a sort of advised pressure for my body weight, and take it from there really. So here's just pumping them up to the right pressures, and then we can go outside and we can stare at it, and the build's finished. So yeah, enjoy this next section. So I hope you've been enjoying this little montage of the finished bike. I do think it needs a touch more purple or silver, maybe order up a chainring for it just to sort of bring out the colour a little bit more, especially with the black pedals. It's a bit unbalanced, I think. But overall I'm super stoked with the bike. I've taken it to Forest Dean, ridden it, and it performs stunningly. Yeah, and for around £2,000 I think I have a killer bike. Unfortunately that's the end of Chain Reaction Cycles. I wish they were still about. Been a long time buyer from them, so RIP to Chain Reaction Cycles and all their associated brands. And yeah, if you got this far, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. It's going to be a retro one.